Tail end has been cooking the last few years, with players like Saka, Nelson, Smith Rowe and Eddie Nketiah being prominent first team players. The attention has been shifted to players like Ethan Nwaneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly. However, the talk of the town right now is the youngster Chido Obi, who is currently looking at like one of the most exciting youngsters in youth team football. But let's have a look if he will ever live up to the hype and how he got here. Let's get into it. Now, Chido Obi is a Danish footballer who is playing in Arsenal's under-18 side right now. He turned 16 in November and was born in 2007. He was born in Glostrup, Denmark, to a Danish mother and Nigerian father, but he looks to have started his career playing for Denmark, as he has played for their under-16s and under-17 side, while also playing for England's under-16s as well. And you might be asking why there's a lot of talk about him, and it's just because he is absolutely smashing it in the under-18s right now. There was a lot of hype about this guy over the last few years, but he has really come into the forefront recently. To put in perspective, in his last 5 games, he scored 16 goals and scored 5 against West Ham. And while these stats are amazing, a lot of the people in the academy don't think this is this much of a surprise, because when he was 15, he was playing for the under-18s as well, and when he was younger, he was always playing at higher levels. And he actually got moved up to the under-18s in the last few months, because in November, he scored 10 goals in one game against Liverpool's under-16 side, being 15 at the time. Now, the crazy thing is, when you look at all these goals he scored in that under-16 game, there's so many different ways. There's goals where he runs in behind and curls it into the corner, a bit like Thierry Henry and Alexander Isak-esque, and there's other goals where he's very calm and composed and walks around the keeper or takes his time. He's also very prolific in the air, and this definitely helps. He's 6'2", which at the age of 15 is crazy that he was that high, and this definitely gives him an advantage over the young groups that he's playing against, because he's a lot more physical and can just win any headers. He also seems like a very intense player. He's very quick at trying to win the ball back and trying to create goal scoring opportunities, and often some of the times in these younger age groups, people want to take a bit more time on the ball and get familiar with their surroundings, but he doesn't seem like he needs to. And this is clearly repeated through the club and what they think, because Arteta actually called up the guy when he was still 15 to play alongside the senior squad for training, and when he was 15 he made his first appearance for the under-21 side as well. And since he went from under-16s to under-18s level, it's definitely been not even a jump up for the player at all, because despite still being really young, he has played 14 games in the under-18s Premier League and scored 20 goals and got 2 assists, averaging a goal every 54 minutes. And he seems very comfortable with both feet. He has actually scored a lot of goals on his left and his right, and seems comfortable with shooting on both depending on what opportunity is given to him. But his power and physicality is definitely his best attribute right now. Obviously this could be down to the groups that he's playing against, probably why he scored 10 goals against the other under-16 Liverpool side, but his physicality and his height makes him a monster on the pitch. He can hold the ball up well and shrug defenders off with ease, and he's so strong on duels and especially aerially that on corners he makes it so dominant as well. He honestly looks like someone like Erling Haaland did when he was playing in the youth academies and young matches when he was coming through. And you can definitely see the resemblance of someone like Thierry Henry or Alexander Isak with the player, because he is actually very good at dribbling as well, despite obviously being quite a lanky player. He loves to take on players and weave in and out of tight situations, and he also has really insane pace, which he helps him put the ball out in front of him and then be able to stride to get it. And he loves that space in behind where he can open up that stride and create the power enough to separate him from the defenders and usually get there before the goalkeeper. And with him probably getting a permanent spot between the under-21s next year, despite still being 16 and he doesn't turn 17 until November, he's also been getting into the first team training a lot more. He got into the first team training last week, and considering he started training in November with the first team occasionally, now it seems like it's a much more permanent figure. So Arteta clearly can identify him and see if he's good, and if their players are good enough, I think Arsenal will continue to use him in the future. And now there's definitely ways that you can make this player better in the future. I think one of the biggest areas of development is probably getting him a bit more experience. I know he's obviously very young, but he needs to be playing levels and games at a high level to continue his progression and see how far he can get, because right now he is just dominating these age groups so much that it's kind of pointless him even being there. Maybe when he gets to the under-21s next year might be a little bit harder for him, and then we can see the level he's at. But at the age of 16, players sometimes are good enough to come through. We've seen Ethan get chances in the first team, and a lot of players are really excited about him because he clearly is just too dominant in the youth academies and has to be nurtured into the side occasionally, but can definitely be good enough to be in there. And if Arsenal do get a perspective or point this season where we don't have anything to play for near the end, I could expect Obi Martin to actually come into the side and maybe sit on the bench, but maybe get a couple of minutes as well, because I know Arteta likes to do that. And another problem problem with being at such a young age group is a lot of the times the players can be quite independent. There might be not necessarily reliance on players to give you the passes that you want, and a lot of his goals are very good, but they do seem like he's just doing it all by himself, going past players, making the runs, and obviously sometimes he gets great through balls and great crosses which he latches onto, but a lot of the time he needs that link up play and that dependence of passing it to people that he can trust, because he does seem like he hasn't got the best link up play and can be less involved in the overall team play when getting forward. But of course, this guy has just turned 16. He's incredibly young, and just because people like Ethan are really far in their progression at that age doesn't mean that normal players are, and it really isn't like that a lot of the times. So obviously he is not fully developed, and we are unsure of how he can adapt to senior football and the player he might become. He might be a different player in the future and might play nothing like he does now, developing into a completely different role or position. And I think a big thing about Arsenal's hell and why it's really successful right now is because there is a lot of patience within our academy. Some players don't break through until they're 20, 21, and that is completely fine. A lot of other countries and teams that have great youth academies will often ship players away very early. Obviously you look at amazing academies like Ajax's or Barcelona's, and they have brilliant players coming through at 16 and 17 all the time, but they're given the opportunities because the teams aren't necessarily playing that well right now and they aren't competing all the time. This means that when players do get to 20, they simply don't get the chances and they are usually shifted out of the team. But with us, we have never really done that. Woklz is still yet to play a first team game, and a lot of people think he's a great future in that right back spot, and while he could still be that, he hasn't been given that opportunities yet. And while sometimes you get absolute freaks of nature like Saka coming through or Nwaneri, they will push through into play to the game, but Saka came through and had to play left back for many years, and now he's finally playing his position, and obviously he's a world class player, so that makes sense. Of course we don't want to put unnecessarily pressure on these youngsters, but he is very much touted in our youth academy to be one of the next big things, and obviously we've got loads of players that can do that because our youth academy is brilliant right now, and I think there's so many quality players in there, and there's definitely a mould and a model that they have to abide by with Arteta's tactics, and it definitely works throughout the club. But the next few years for Obi's progression is crucial, and seeing his maturity, sometimes players don't adapt very well and it could be hard for him, but he is clearly too good for the level he is playing at right now, the under 18s, and was clearly too good at the under 16s 4 months ago, and that is a brilliant progression. I'd love to see him play for the under 19s, but then mostly the under 21s permanently next season, and training with the first team will definitely be beneficial too. Obviously he's quite far away from becoming a first team player at his age, but it's very good to get that experience and play with world class players every week, and I'm sure Arteta and Per Mertesacker understand the amount of quality that is in with him, and I think he is a brilliant season in ahead, and I want to let people know about how good this player could be. And with him being so physically big and tall, he could get even taller when he gets older. Concerningly, he could get to up to 6'5" as well and be an absolute massive striker, so it'd be very interesting to see if he plays with that system, if he is that tall. Let me know what you think about Obi Martin, and let me know about any other youngsters in the hell end that you want me to talk about. Now I might have butchered his name, I'm really sorry about that, I'm awful with punctuation. If you like this video, please go and watch my video yesterday, and if not, go and watch my video earlier today where I did a video about Isak and why Arsenal could potentially want to buy him. Let me know what you think in the comments.